Hi, Ozzy. Thanks for your post for this week. I just wanted to provide some insight, some greater insight to the things that you mentioned, because you mentioned some really good points, and you definitely added to my post with all the research and knowledge that you had. So thank you for that. And so I just wanted to talk about the civil liberties and trials as far as military combatants and prisoners of war. So I went back to things that we had discussed in the terrorism class and reread a few things. So here are some points I wanted to make. And the first was that in 1984, Congress ratified the United Nations Convention on Torture, quoting that it outlawed torture as any act by which severe pain or suffering, whether physical or mental, is intentionally inflicted. And this applied to all members of the human family. And I just thought this point was interesting because our chapter this week mentions the debates of torture and how people should be treated, as well as the accusations against the Bush administration. And I think this also goes along with some of what you were mentioned of the prisoners of war and combatants and those things. So I also wanted to add that the Torture Victims Protection Act of 1991 allows torture victims to bring civil claims against their torturers or tormentors in U.S. courts. And even if the crimes took place on foreign soil, they were still able to, under this act, try in the United States. So just going along with these things, and as far as military and non-military combatants at Guantanamo Bay, I don't have much research on the military tribunals and holding them for a certain period of time and if they've been held too long and all that stuff. But I just wanted to add my opinion of maybe why the military tribunals hadn't take place and some prisoners of war or non-military combatants were being held for so long. And in my opinion, it is unethical to have some of the men sit as long as they have. But I think in some of their cases, it's hard to bring charges against some because you don't always know what to charge them with. You might know that they have been involved in, let me try and think how I was going to say this. You might know that they have been involved in terrorist acts or have involvement in the organization or have led somebody to take out terrorist acts, but you really don't know if it's like definitely true. It just seems hard sometimes to try these guys and bring them into courts because if you didn't see that, it's like if you didn't see them commit the crime, but you know they have some affiliation to the group, do you charge them as if they committed the crime, or do you charge them as having some interest in taking part in the crime? So I just feel like that's why there are so many people sitting in Guantanamo Bay, because we really don't know always what to charge them with because you don't always know their involvement. So that was just my opinion and what I thought about the military tribunals and having trials for the guys as part of what you said. So as far as the Patriot Act and surveilling Americans, we actually, during the terrorism class, we actually watched this movie, and it was kind of scary, the things that they pointed out in this movie, because it didn't take place in the United States, but it took place in England, but we watched it because it showed the capabilities of surveillance and following people in the United States and all this other stuff. So in England, they had placed surveillance cameras all over the city, and we watched it as the surveillance cameras followed this guy. He just looked like a normal citizen, didn't look suspicious or anything. But when but they were able to control the camera that if they wanted to follow this guy, they were following him, and they did follow him. We watched him follow him like down several streets, follow him until what kind of stores they went into. So it was just kind of scary watching something like that and seeing how far the technology can go. And not saying that this type of surveillance is part of the Patriot Act or under the Patriot Act, but it just shows how kind of unethical it was to follow this guy the way they did. And it just kind of goes to show that with the Patriot Act, how far can they go before you're going too far into somebody's personal life and all that type of thing. So I definitely trying to find my notes. Sorry. So I definitely think that these things go into play with the Patriot Act, and some aspects of the Patriot Act are unethical. Like you mentioned, I think you mentioned they had 6 days to read 300 and something pages, which doesn't seem logical at all, but they just wanted to pass it through so fast and quickly to get this going, and they didn't really know how far this would actually go of following people and surveilling them and all that kind of stuff. So thanks for your post. I hope this provided some more insight and answered some of your questions. It was basically just what I thought about what you were saying and going off of. So thanks for your post. I look forward to hearing more.